The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Marcus Webb pushed his mop across the marble floors of the 42nd-story boardroom, his calloused hands gripping the handle with the quiet dignity of a man who had learned that honest work was nothing to be ashamed of. It was 3 a.m, and the skyline of Chicago stretched endlessly beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, a sea of lights that seemed to mock the darkness of his own circumstances. Marcus had been cleaning these halls for 6 years now, ever since his wife Sarah died giving birth to their daughter Emma, leaving him alone to raise a child with special needs on a janitor's salary. He worked the night shift so he could be there for Emma during the day, taking her to therapy appointments, helping her with schoolwork, being both mother and father to a little girl who saw the world differently than everyone else. The executives who rushed past him during evening meetings never looked at him twice, never knew that the man scrubbing their coffee stains had once been an accountant at a mid-sized firm before medical bills and grief had dismantled everything he had built. But tonight was different. Tonight, Marcus had arrived early for his shift and found himself accidentally locked in a storage closet adjacent to the main conference room when security did their rounds. Through the thin wall he could hear voices, tense and argumentative, as Wellington Industries top executives debated a merger with Techmore Corporation that would be worth $7 billion. Marcus tried not to listen, tried to focus on organizing supplies in the darkness, but the voices grew louder, more desperate, and he heard CEO Richard Ashford outline the deal with cold precision. The merger would eliminate 3,000 jobs across both companies, gutting entire departments to maximize shareholder value and create what Ashford called operational efficiency. Marcus felt his stomach tighten as he heard the CFO mention that the cuts would primarily affect lower-wage workers, maintenance staff, administrative assistants, the people who kept the machinery of the company running but were considered expendable in the ruthless mathematics of corporate consolidation. If you believe that every person matters, that kindness and second chances can change the world, please like this video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share more stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Marcus knew he should stay silent, knew that a janitor had no place in boardroom decisions, but something inside him broke open as he listened to these men casually discussing the destruction of thousands of lives, as though they were merely adjusting budget numbers on a spreadsheet. He thought of Emma, of the countless times strangers had dismissed her because she learned differently, because she didn't fit their narrow definition of valuable. He thought of the other janitors, the cafeteria workers, the security guards who had become his friends, people with families and dreams and bills that kept them awake at night. When he finally managed to unlock the closet door from the inside, the meeting was reaching its conclusion, and instead of slipping away quietly as he should have, Marcus found himself walking into that boardroom, his worn uniform a stark contrast to their tailored suits, his presence so unexpected that conversation stopped mid-sentence. Richard Ashford looked up from the conference table with obvious irritation, his silver hair perfectly styled, his expression that of a man unused to interruptions from people he considered beneath his notice. He was about to call security when Marcus spoke, his voice quiet but steady, carrying the weight of 6 years of invisible labor and a lifetime of being overlooked. Marcus said that he was sorry for interrupting, that he knew he had no right to be there, but that he had heard their discussion and needed to say something. That had been burning in his chest. He told them he understood business, that he had once worked in finance before life had taken a different turn, and he knew they were looking at numbers and projections and market advantages. But then Marcus said the one sentence that would stop a $7 billion deal in its tracks, the words emerging from some deep well of truth he hadn't known he possessed. He said, "My daughter Emma has a cognitive disability, and when she was 6, a teacher told me she would never contribute anything meaningful to society, but last week she spent 3 hours teaching another child with autism how to tie his shoes because she remembered how hard it was when she learned. And that taught me that the value of a human being cannot be measured by their productivity or their efficiency, only by their capacity for love and kindness, something no spreadsheet will ever capture." The silence that followed was absolute. Marcus saw something flicker across Ashford's face, a crack in the corporate armor, and he realized the CEO was staring at a photograph on his phone that had been lying face up on the table. It showed a young boy, maybe 8 or 9, with the unmistakable features of Down syndrome beaming at the camera with pure, unself-conscious joy. Ashford's hand trembled slightly as he picked up the phone, and when he looked at Marcus again, his eyes held something Marcus had never expected to see there: a recognition, a shared wound, a sudden and complete understanding between two fathers who lived in different worlds but knew the same fear. Ashford stood slowly, his expensive suit suddenly seeming like a costume he wanted to shed. He told the room that the meeting was adjourned, that they would reconvene in the morning, and as the confused executives filed out, he asked Marcus to stay. What happened next became legendary in corporate circles, whispered about in business schools and analyzed in leadership seminars, though few knew the complete truth. Ashford explained that the boy in the photograph was his grandson Leo, his daughter's son, and that he had been so focused on building an empire that he had almost missed Leo's childhood, too busy with mergers and acquisitions to attend therapy sessions or school concerts. He said that Marcus's words had hit him like a physical blow, forcing him to see the human cost of decisions he had been making with calculated detachment. The next day, Ashford called an emergency board meeting and announced that Wellington Industries would not be pursuing the merger with Techmore Corporation. Instead, the company would be restructuring with a different vision, one that prioritized sustainable growth over rapid expansion, one that recognized employees as human beings rather than line items on a balance sheet. He established a new program to provide educational opportunities and career advancement for lower-wage workers, created a fund to support employees with family members who had disabilities, and hired Marcus as a special consultant to help the company understand the perspective of workers, whose voices were rarely heard in executive decisions. The board was initially resistant, shocked by what they saw as sentimentality undermining sound business practice, but Ashford's conviction was unshakable, transformed by a janitor's simple truth spoken in a moment of accidental courage. If this story touched your heart, if you believe that compassion should guide our choices just as much as profit, please hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and let us know in the comments how this story made you feel. Your engagement truly matters to us. Marcus's life changed in ways he could never have imagined that night, but what moved him most was not his new position or improved salary. It was watching Emma befriend Leo at a company family event months later, two children who the world had tried to limit, teaching each other games and laughing with the kind of unguarded happiness that reminded everyone watching what really mattered. Richard Ashford told Marcus that night, with tears in his eyes, that he had been so afraid of his company becoming irrelevant that he had almost made himself irrelevant as a human being, and that a janitor with a mop and a father's love had saved him from the worst mistake of his life. Before we end, please take a moment to comment below and tell us, have you ever witnessed a small act of courage that changed everything? We'd love to hear your stories. The merger that never happened became a different kind of success story, one measured not in billions of dollars but in thousands of lives preserved, in families kept whole, in the revolutionary idea that a company could be both profitable and humane. And every morning when Marcus arrived at work now, walking through doors that once represented only exhaustion and invisibility, he thought of that 3 a.m. moment when he chose to speak instead of staying silent, when a janitor's words proved more powerful than a CEO's entire fortune, when one sentence spoken from the heart stopped a $7 billion machine and reminded a room full of powerful men that the most important things in life cannot be bought, sold, or merged, only recognized, protected, and loved.